Team Flynn, thank you so much for joining me today in episode 202 of The Income Stream. Still feeling that high from episode 200 a couple days ago. And yesterday we had an amazing show about the idea of storytelling. And within this idea of storytelling, I told a story about a time when my son had asked to play with the iPad in the car. And that brought on the idea later that evening, last night, that I think we need to talk a little bit more about asking for things. You've probably heard that phrase, if you don't ask, you don't get, which is true, but I think there is an art to the ask. And there's different reasons we might want to ask for help. I have some stories from my own history about certain things related to asking, because I did not want to ask for help in the beginning, and I'll tell more stories about that. But for right now, just thank you so much for joining me today. Say hello to your friends here if you're live, if you're watching the replay, hashtag Team Replay in the comments section, and I look forward to having this open conversation with you about asking for things. Let's have some fun.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
All right, Team Flynn. Woo! Man, so there's a lot of things going on today. I have some landscapers coming to take out our grass. We're putting some artificial grass in, which should be pretty cool. The heat has just completely killed our grass, unfortunately, and we here in San Diego are very water conscious as well. So we are going to be getting some artificial grass installed. Who knows? Maybe I'll do some golfing on it or something. I don't want to hit any balls into my neighbors' backyards, though. I'm doing a webinar later today. Maybe I'll see some of you on it, but I'm going to be talking about podcasting and how to help people who are just literally at the start of their podcasting journey, as well as what to look forward to, what to look out for, some special tricks, beginner and advanced, for those of you interested in podcasting. That's happening in about 2.5 hours from right now, which I'm really excited about. And so that's kind of all that's on my mind right now. But for right now, we're going to be talking about the art of the ask. Right? It's really important to learn how to ask properly. I think that especially when we're kids, oftentimes we don't understand the power of asking. We just ask for things, right? And then we don't really determine. We sometimes from our parents just get told, no, you shouldn't be asking for this, or no, like you shouldn't expect that. But I think as we grow into adults, it's really important for us to understand that asking is actually a very important component of our journey and of our success journey. And I don't know if and maybe chat, you can tell me a little bit why you think this is the case, but I think we get conditioned to feel bad asking for things. Maybe it's because we have a sense that we have to do everything on our own, or we have to figure out everything on our own, that it's our own responsibility to go out and find answers to things versus perhaps putting that burden on somebody else. But I will say that there are a lot of people out there who, in fact, absolutely love to help. In fact, the other day I was at the grocery store and there was a woman who was reaching really high for something, and she just turned around and legit without hesitation was just like, "Excuse me, sir, can you grab this for me? It's kind of high for me." And I was more than happy to do it. And that was just like a little moment, but I felt really good. I felt great having the ability to help somebody who needed some help. And it was just a little moment during the day. But remember yesterday how we talked about these little moments and how important they could be in our storytelling? Well, here was another example, just a little moment at the store. And now I'm bringing it and using it as an example. But it made me feel really, really good because I was able to help out. And it just took a moment. But I think that's the first lesson here, is we have to understand that, well, a lot of people actually want to help, but aren't going to help unless you ask them. There are, of course, the people out there who will serve and look to find people who might need help without any asking. This is the idea of that waiter who comes around the table, and when your glass is just half full, you still go and pour that water and without even asking, right? But that's great, and I talk about that in my book, Super Friends, trying to go above and beyond in terms of customer service, in terms of helping people out. But I think when it comes to asking, again, we get conditioned to believe that just we're supposed to do everything ourselves. But I don't think that's that's how it should be. I love what Kathy here says. When you let people help you, it's a gift to them as well, right? But there's a balance, right? We don't want to always ask for help without actually putting in any effort on our end. especially when it comes to building a business or being an entrepreneur. Sometimes there's this balance of, well, I don't want to be too needy. I don't want to seem too desperate. I don't want to just ask somebody when I know they might be busy already. And so I think there's an art to the ask in terms of how you might phrase what it is that you might need help with. There's also asking not just for help, but for things that you need that you don't absolutely need. And what I mean by this is the asking of, for example, having somebody come onto your podcast or asking somebody if you can be on theirs. And there's a certain art to that. But I think more than anything, we have to understand that asking is not bad. This is sort of lesson number one. I remember when I first started out in business, I was so determined not to ask for help. It actually became like a goal or a quest of mine to not ask for help. Oh, I could figure this out on my own. I can do this all myself. And I think that comes from just how I was conditioned as a kid to want to study on my own and see the results of that. Perfectionism was definitely a part of my DNA, and I've still continued to battle that. I don't know if any of you can relate to that perfectionism, but I know I still deal with that every once in a while. And I'm just flabbergasted at all the moments that I'm thinking about how against asking for help I was. That's, by the way, the secret word of October, thanks to Ryan, or RhinoDog34, who I believe is in the room. We are changing our secret word of the month from behoove, which it was last month, to now flabbergasted. And if I don't use that secret word, this is just for you guys, if you catch me not using that word throughout the entire stream, then my punishment is to play a game of Watch Your Mouth over the weekend, which is a really embarrassing game that has become sort of my punishment here if I don't do that. So flabbergasted. Thank you, Ryan, for that. How old is Pat? Says Rita. How old do you think I am? I'm okay playing this game, but if y'all have any guesses, let me know. Save Like a Bear says, what was the last ask that you got that was inappropriate? Not to name and shame. I mean, there's not inappropriate asks, and I don't dwell on them too much. I don't remember anything quite recent. I mean, but there's asks every day of me. There are emails that come in that ask me to feature them on their podcast or to promote their book without even having a relationship first. I mean, those to me aren't quote unquote inappropriate, but it's like, well, we haven't even developed a relationship first. How could you possibly ask me for something without some relationship or offering the other way around, right? When it comes to asking, I think really, and this is where I wanted to lead, but I'll get into more of my own stories about how I didn't ask in a moment. But it really comes down to serving first. And you've heard me say this before. This is sort of my mantra, serve first. And when it comes to asking, for example, if I want to be on another person's podcast, I'm not going to ask them if I can come on their show. I want to know what I can bring to their table. What might they need help with? How can I serve them? If I am asking somebody to come on my podcast, it's not about, hey, can you come on my show? Because I think you'd make a really good guest. That's a very self-serving way of asking. The ask should be, hey, how might I help you? How might I bring more exposure to your brand? Do you have a book coming out? Do you have a course coming out that we can maybe talk about and unpack a little bit? This serves that person who I'm asking. So that's kind of where we're going. But let me take you back again into time to share with you, as I was starting out, the things that I refused to ask for help for. There was a moment, I remember this specifically because it was just kind of funny what happened in the end. So I had been so adamant about wanting to build my own website and do everything myself. And thankfully, I got into WordPress, and there are blog themes and other things that are really simple, relatively speaking, to set up, because a theme is essentially a skin that lives over WordPress, which is a blogging platform. So I could choose these different skins for my website, and unfortunately, they come pre-packaged with how things are laid out. And there was one particular theme that I really wanted to use, but there was just something that was on the left side of the page that I wanted to move over to the right side of the page. So I was very, very adamant about figuring out how to do this on my own, because the theme would have been perfect if I was able to do that, right? And it was literally just like a certain section of the sidebar that I wanted moved over to the other side of the page. Well, anyway, I spent literally 8 hours on YouTube and reading books about CSS and JavaScript and all this crap to try and figure out how to do it on my own. And I remember, and this was pre-kids, in fact, April came into the kitchen where my desk was, and she saw that I was getting really frustrated. April is my wife. And she's like, what's going on? And I said, well, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this, and I cannot figure it out. I've been at it for hours. And she's like, well, what are you trying to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm just trying to move this thing over here to over here on this website, and it's just bothering me that I'm not able to do this. So I'm probably gonna be here for another few hours trying to figure this out. And she's like, well, why don't you ask someone for help? And I said, no, here's the big thing, I've already put in hours of work trying to figure this out. I'm probably really close to the answer, right? How many times do we, because of the time we've spent doing something already, feel like we have to continue on that path? It reminds me of how I felt when I got laid off and I started this journey into online business. Oh, well, I have to do architecture because I spent 5 years studying that and 3 years in the field. But no, our past does not determine our future. That's a big macro moment. This is a micro moment, right? So that was my initial excuse. No, I already dedicated enough. Like, I've already tried figuring this out. Like, it would be a waste almost. Sounds kind of funny thinking about it, right? But I was thinking like, oh, it would be a waste if I didn't continue and follow through because I had already dedicated that time. And she's like, okay, well, if you need some help, let me know. And I was like, how could you help me? No offense, with the website. And she's like, oh, well, my friend, one of my best friends from college, is a web designer, and I'm sure he can help you out if he needs if you need it. And I was like, okay, well, I'll let you know. Anyway, 2 hours go by, and I'm like, April, can you just send me an email to your friend Mel, who is in web design? Anyway, we connected, me and Mel. Mel, I gave him a password to come into my website, and literally in 5 minutes, he was able to fix things. And the ironic part about this was he went back to me later and said, hey, Pat, can you tell me a little bit about who developed your website? Because the coding is a little bit amateur, and I'm a little bit worried about your website security based on what I'm seeing. And I was like, yeah, I built the website. So anyway, that was a very specific example of a moment when I could have just asked for help much sooner. And I soon realized that there are people who can do things much better and faster than I can, right? So what are the guesses for my age? I'm curious. Samson nailed it on the head. Pat can't be a day over 20. Thanks, Avi. You're right. The fact that you're adding crying emojis after that has me sus of your comment. Spanish and Go says, 100% Pat, I've had the same problem for years. I always felt like asking for help seemed like a sign of weakness or something. That's not the right mindset. Thank you for framing it that way, Spanish and Go. But the truth is the opposite. If you know what your strengths are and you lean into that, and then you know what your weaknesses are and you get support for that, that's how we grow. And this is why mastermind groups are really, really important to me. We did an episode about 100 episodes ago in the income stream, which is crazy to say, but it was about mastermind groups and how important they are and how to framework them and how to find new people and other people to be a part of in this group with. And in these groups, it's all about asking for help. And it's trained me over the last 10 years to realize that there are, number one, people who are willing and want to help you. Not everybody will want to help, and not everybody can help in this moment. But the truth is, like I said earlier, you're not going to get help unless you open up yourself to receiving this help. That's number one, opening up yourself to receiving this help. That mindset has to change, or else you're not, even if people do want to help you. How often do sometimes people offer to help and we go, no, I got this, right? And this is something that I know sometimes my son struggles with a little bit in terms of, well, if I see him struggling with something, whether it's math or some project, he likes to build things out of cardboard in the garage. We have a space in our garage called the Makery, kind of like bakery, but Makery, where we just put a whole bunch of scraps there, cardboard, glue, scissors, all the things that like a kid could use to just create. And he's in there. And sometimes I go in there and he's working on building some sort of machine or mechanism. and he's just frustrated. And I can tell. And I said, "Hey, do you want help? Or can I help you with that?" And he's like, "No, I'm going to do it." And a part of me, especially for a kid who I think it's important to have them struggle a little bit. And so for me as a parent, I have to really navigate that idea of, okay, offering help and then listening. No, I don't want help right now. Or truly understanding how I might be able to sort of help or in fact coach this person. So my son, I'll often ask questions to help him figure out what the right answer is. If I know the answer, I don't always want to tell him the answer. I want him to figure it out on his own. It's almost like when a kid cooks his own food, they're more likely to eat it, which is why we are teaching the kids how to grow their own food in the garden and then sort of all that stuff. Anyway, Heidi here says, some people enjoy helping others, me included, only when you feel helping others and not forced to do it. Agreed. Thank you for this topic. I do need help right now. I wonder if the do-it-myself is an entrepreneur thing. I think you're right, Eagle Eyes. I think that definitely has to do with it. And thank you again for just the back and forth conversation with everybody here today about this, because this is an important topic to discuss. I almost feel like together today we are sort of like in a mastermind group discussing this. I didn't come in with a bullet point list of how 10 ways to get over yourself and learn how to ask for help. This is not this kind of conversation today. This is more of a roundtable between all of us here. And I think that kind of reflects sort of this topic a little bit. I wonder if the do-it-myself thing is an entrepreneur thing. I've spent hours kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, because I just do the challenge myself and then move on to the next thing. You know, I've come to realize, especially for big challenges, right, that there are people out there who have so much more experience, who have made all the mistakes already, who understand the shortest point from A to Z. It would behoove us to use that information. We're getting a twofer here. I'm just flabbergasted at how incredible the opportunity is with how generous some people are with their information. Some people share their information in books, in courses, on their website, on their podcast. And of course, we should utilize that if in fact that does relate to the next thing and the next challenge that we're working on, right? Whatever the struggle is, let's focus and find people who've gone through that already. In a case in point, when I made the decision in 2016 to run a triathlon, or to swim, bike, run a triathlon, because that's the order, right? And I had this idea. I found somebody who had done them before, and I got training from them, right? Imagine if I didn't ask for help, what I would have done training-wise. I could have injured myself. I could have just wasted a lot of time. Imagine how much slower perhaps I would be if I didn't get the right training. Perhaps how dangerous that is. If I tried to learn how to swim, I already knew how to swim, but not long distances. I had never swam more than a few laps in my life. And through the training and through the help and advice from somebody who had done this before, thank you, Jeff, by the way, totalbodyconstruction.com, I was able to fast forward my way to success. And within about 4 months, I was able to have the ability to have my first mini triathlon done, or sprint triathlon is what it's called. And it was a 1 mile swim, a 10-mile bike ride, and a 5K. And I'm so grateful that I had that help. And if I didn't ask for that help, I would have never have reached that goal. Number two, potentially have put myself in danger. Number three, it would have been really, really hard to understand even what to do or what to focus on. Jameen says, I have difficulty asking for help because I want to prove to myself that I can do the thing. Problem with that, it takes a long time to learn those things. Agreed. This proving to yourself that you can do it, this is what we need to unpack here. And it's interesting because a lot of times when I dig into a lot of entrepreneurs' stories, especially those who are just starting out, who are wanting to do everything on their own, a lot of times it becomes a result of some past, not necessarily trauma, but just some stuff that has happened in the past where other people, or there are examples where people have put us down saying that, oh, you can't do this on your own, or you're not good enough. And it's hard because, and this is what irks me about bullying so much, because a lot of times even just those words alone could completely change the path of a person's life depending on how they respond to certain situations, right? And this idea of having to prove it to yourself can be good, because it can hopefully get you to the point where you're pushing through those hurdles. You are, you're dedicated to the task at hand. But at the same time, if you're smart about the journey that you're on, you can also understand where you need some guidance, where you need some help, right? Imagine Luke Skywalker not going to find Yoda and what that would have been like. He would have just been continuing to juggle this feeling that he had, this force, and not knowing how to harness it. And so having Yoda come into play obviously helped him. And so how might you, on your own hero's journey, tying it back to yesterday, find guides to help you along the way when, yes, you could potentially do this on your own, but you would be able to get to that result faster. And in the world of entrepreneurship, with the businesses that we're building, help and serve more people sooner, right? So this idea of having to prove it to yourself is a limiting belief. It's this idea that we are not good enough if we ask for help. And the truth is, you are better off when you know what you need help with, finding a solution and having the respect of others that they may know things better than you. This is the other part of this. I think that it's very, and this is what helped me, is realizing that it is a selfish thing. This is how I think about it. I'm not saying that this is true. This is just my opinion. This is how I have wrapped my head around the asking situation, is to realize that it is a selfish thing to not allow others to help who have better skills, better experiences. Whether I hire them, because guess what? Then I'd be keeping that money for myself and not actually supporting others who indeed have made and proclaimed that they want to help others. And yes, I may have to pay them for that help, maybe not. But if I do, well, if I'm keeping it all to myself, well, I am, number one, struggling. Number two, I'm not able to help others in the business that they've created to help others like me. And even if they don't necessarily ask for payment, there is that sense of accomplishment when helping others that's totally missed too. Jameen says, I'm totally dialed into you right now. Thank you, Jameen. I was talking to you, but talking to everybody else here too. Yes, needing to prove you can, learning all parts of your work is a limiting belief, I know. And then I'm still struggling with this too. I mean, trust me, I like to figure things out. There's this sense of curiosity that I definitely love and enjoy. I could obviously learn how a remote control car works and just somebody could tell me all that info and I could get to the answer right away. But there's this sense of just picking things apart. I don't know if this is just me, maybe you can relate, but I like the hunt of the answer too. And this is the other part of the thing that holds us back from often asking. And we'll talk about what to ask for and how to ask and some other things in a moment. But I love the hunt. I'm a curious person. I am extremely excited when I get a chance to potentially find the answer. And I remember when I was a kid, I would take apart RC cars and literally with a little screwdriver and I'd take it apart and I'd lay out all the parts like a mechanic would. And then I'd try to put them all back together and I'd start to understand how things worked. But the truth is, we can do that and should do that, but not for everything. And it was in 2000 and, oh man, I have so many stories I could tell about when I finally opened up to getting help. Sometimes help is obvious, right? It's required. I don't know how to do certain things, so I need help, or else just I wouldn't be able to do it, and I don't have the time. And in that case, it sort of makes sense. But it's when you do have the time to do something, and you actually do perhaps even enjoy it, it's that CEO mindset. The winners go, oh, even though I can do this and I'm good at it, I shouldn't do this because I need to put my time and energy into this bigger thing that only I can do. And that's where in 2013, I had a conversation with Ramit Sethi, a good friend of mine who helped me understand the benefit of offering other people things and focusing more on the things that only I can do. So case in point, 2014, a brand new podcast came out called Ask Pat. And this was a podcast that would have been able to be done just by myself. But I knew that I didn't have the time to do it. And even though I loved podcasting and I loved the editing and I loved like the publishing of it, I just love everything about podcasting. It was when I finally hired Mindy, who is no longer in the podcast team on my team, but is still within Team SPI. She's our solutions and technology person. She's definitely exceeded those podcast editing skills for sure. But that's when it really opened up for me. I got hours of time back getting help from her, hiring her on the team. First contractually, and now she's a member of Team SPI as an employee. There was a time in 2009, in fact. Let's actually go to this camera here, right here. So 2009, just started my website helping people pass an architectural exam, right? So I had this ebook, just words in a PDF document, sold it for $19.99. And then I started hearing that, wow, people wanted an audio version of this. So I was like, oh, cool. I'm just about to start a podcast. I have all the equipment. So I might as well. No, actually, I didn't have equipment at this point. I had a Logitech gamer headset, just with a little microphone. And I was like, oh, I could record my own audio. So I spent 3.5 days recording my own book. It was my own book. I knew it best. And so all I had to do was hit record and get these little MP3 files using, I can't remember what I used. I don't think it was GarageBand. It was some other program where I could just record my voice. And then boom, I had these MP3s that I could sell alongside the book. So I spent 3.5 days. I recorded 74 lessons because there were 74 sort of chapters in this book to help people pass this exam. And I played it and it was terrible. First of all, the audio quality was bad. Number two, it just was, it was monotone. It was robotic. It was not good at all. I had never spent that much time recording my own voice. And that maybe was a reason why it took me so long to actually start a podcast, because I kind of remember what that was like and how much of a waste of time that felt. But then all of a sudden, I went back to my mastermind group that I had at the time, yes, even in 2009, and I told them that I wanted to have this audio version of my book come out. And they were like, okay, well, what might be your first step? And I was like, well, I already tried recording it myself. And they all kind of laughed at me, like not in a disrespectful way, but they were just like, oh my gosh, don't you know there are people out there that you can hire to help? And so I went on elance.com, which is now Upwork, right? Odesk and Elance sort of merged and became Upwork. But anyway, I hired help, and for $1,400, which was more money than I had ever spent in my life on anything at this point, I had hired a person, a woman, Trisha, and she read my book. And in 2.5 weeks, she brought it to me, and it was perfectly read. It was such good quality. And in the first day after I launched that, I sent an email to everybody who had purchased my book. Just that one email alone, I made my money back fourfold, from selling the audio version along with that. And then most of the people who bought that guide later also got the package, the one that included the PDF and the audio guide together. So that was just a case where I tried to do something on my own that I thought I could do, and then realized that, well, there are other people who could do this much better and faster. There have been moments where I've been needing some help from people who are, trying to remember. I mean, even my good friend Chris Ducker, who is the man when it comes to virtual assistants. And it took me so long to get to the point where I was open to the idea of having somebody come into my inbox and answer for me, or helping me with some more administrative tasks that, again, I can do and could do myself. And eventually, when it came to the point of needing to make that happen, I went to Chris and I just asked for help. And of course, because he was a friend and I've helped him, he's helped me, that's easy. And if you have the ability to need some help and find a friend who obviously can help you with that, then that's where I would start. Right? That's where I would start. Start with somebody who you already have a relationship with, because usually you've at one point or another helped them, or have had at least some communication together where it's not going to be sort of coming out of nowhere. But if you are in fact going to be asking somebody for something, maybe it's, honestly, probably the most common ask that we are all wondering about is, well, how can I have the ability to perhaps get on another person's podcast, or write a guest post for their blog, or help me get more exposure for my brand, right? But we have to reframe the question. I think that we need to think of the help that comes back toward us as the step 2. So we need to earn that help. We need to, when we ask her something, think first ahead in terms of, okay, well, how are we going to receive this help? What's going to open up that possibility? Well, let me see how I can help this person first. And this is when we start talking about the art of the ask. It's framing the question or first building a relationship where you help the other person, right? There was a point when in 2010, I had a random person reach out to me. His name was Derek Halpern. And he said, Pat, I'd love to help you grow your email list. I saw that you just started building your email list, and I see like 5 or 10 things that you could do in less than 10 minutes that could help you gain maybe even twice as many subscribers. So he was coming from a place of serving me first. And of course, he gave me the rundown. He told me to add some subscription boxes on my About page. He helped me with the copy in and around where people were going to download my lead magnet. And literally overnight, I saw some results. And he followed up with, cool, well, hey, if you if you liked that, I'm on a mission to help other people too. If you had a way that you might be able to share my website or some of these strategies with others, I would be very grateful. If not, no worries. So before he even asked me, because I had this bigger platform than him, he was trying to get his name out there at socialtriggers.com. He first reached out and helped me with something that he knew that I was very, very heavily involved with right now, right? So I've done this in the past, and this was a great example from Derek of serve first. But don't just go, oh, hey, I know how to do this. Let me help you do this too, because you're not quite sure if this person needs that kind of help or not. Sometimes help can come in the form of an introduction. Sometimes help can come in the form of supporting in with any troubleshooting that this person might be having. Help can potentially come in the support of feedback, positive or constructive feedback, right? Love this story also. Just listen to the SPI episode. Yeah, I mean, I use that story a lot. The fact that Derek reached out to me, he offered help with something that was very, very relevant to me right now. So if you are asking somebody for help, do a little bit of digging first. See what they're involved with, where they might be going. This is very simple. If you, for example, want to have and ask somebody to come onto your podcast, especially if it's somebody who's maybe a little bit bigger or a little bit more higher level than you in terms of clout or what have you, sometimes it can be very intimidating to go and ask somebody to come on your show. But if you just simply frame it that way, hey, can you come on my show? I'd love to have you on my show. Can you come on my show? I would love to have you on my show. If you're using the word I or my or me more than what you can do for the other person, then it's not going to work out very well. We need to come at it from an angle of helping them. So an ask to be on another person's podcast, let me just tell you how I asked Gary Vaynerchuk to come on my show. I reached out to him, and first of all, he's a very busy guy, so I wasn't able to actually reach him. But I did some digging on LinkedIn, and I found out who his decision maker was, who the person who was working for Vaynerchuk Media that was in charge of his schedule and whose podcast and like all this other stuff. I also looked up who was involved in writing and helping with the marketing of his book, because he had a book coming out called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And in Jab, 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 Right Hook, he talks about this idea of give, 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 and then ask, right? Which is I love that message. It was very relatable to SPI and still is, right? Give, 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 then ask, or jab, 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 right hook, left hook. So I wanted him on my show. But if I went to Gary or his team and said, hey, I'd love Gary Vaynerchuk on the podcast, I think he would be a perfect guest. That's all what I think. The positioning was, hey, I'd love to support the upcoming book launch. I have a podcast. It reaches your exact target market, and I'd love to help you get in front of your target audience much easier and sell more books for you. Can I ask if I could spend some time with Gary on the podcast to feature him in his book? This is how I got Tim Ferriss to say yes to coming on my podcast in episode 51. And I remember that episode specifically because I kind of fanboyed for the first 8 minutes, and I kind of feel bad about that. But he was definitely an important part in my journey, and so I had to thank him publicly for that. Anyway, that was a really fun moment. And in episode 51, we talked about his book, The 4-Hour Chef. And that was very relevant in terms of how to learn and how to, these experimentations that he's done. And so again, same thing. I reached out to somebody who I knew was a friend of Tim, and I asked for I asked for an introduction. And that's another way to ask for help. If you happen to know somebody who knows the person that you're trying to reach out to, then see if you can get an introduction. So I got an introduction. This person helped me get into Tim Ferriss's contact list, and I was able to bring Tim Ferriss on the show, because during these times when these bigger authors and these bigger people, they know that they're going to go crazy during these times, like book tour times. So I knew that that was my best chance to have Tim Ferriss on the show, right? So that worked really, really well. Now, if I want to be on another person's podcast, I might frame this ask to number one, I might go into their content calendar or their archive, or so there's a number of different ways. If I want to be on another person's podcast, which you've heard me say before, getting on another person's podcast is right now the biggest, quickest, easiest way to grow, because not only are you able to get in front of another audience, but you're getting endorsed by a person who that audience already trusts. So guest podcasting would be an amazing strategy. But just simply going to somebody who has a podcast and going, hey, I'd love to be on your show, is not good enough. Also, sharing your credentials is not good enough, because a lot of these podcasters, it's not about just who you are. It's about what is best going to serve their audience and what haven't they talked about yet. So I'll often, if I want to be on another person's podcast and I don't have a relationship with them or a friend who could make an introduction, again, that's where I would start. But if I don't have that, I don't reach out cold and go, hey, can I be on your podcast? Never, ever, ever do I do that. I do a couple of things. Number one, I look into their archive to see what topics they like to talk about and are also very popular, because I want to know what their audience kind of responds to. Number two, I also try to determine, okay, well, what within that realm haven't they hit that, based on my research, could potentially be popular? Where might I be able to bring my superpowers in to serve this person's audience and to fill out their archive even more? Secondly, I look at their social streams. I try to look to see what are they into or involved with right now. I might find that they've been talking a lot about webinars recently for whatever reason. They've maybe conducted a few, they really enjoy it, they're mentioning it on their social platforms, they've run a couple, they're teaching their audience how to do it a little bit. I might offer, hey, you know what, I've done over 100 webinars, I see that you're doing them too. Might I be able to help you with your upcoming webinars? I've learned some things after doing this over a couple hundred times. And by the way, if this is something you'd love to talk about on your podcast, I'd be more than happy to come on and share this info with your audience too. If not, I'd be more than happy to just help you. And I've used that same exact framework, not with webinars specifically. That's just on top of my mind because I just filmed a webinar course recently. But that always at least gets a response, because now this person knows that I know what they need, right? Another great way to get featured on another person's podcast is, in fact, being a student of theirs. Many podcasters know that, or it's kind of obvious when you think about it, if you make that podcaster look good, then that person's going to want to make themselves look good in front of everybody else. It's just how humans work. So becoming a star student, or the teacher's pet, if you will, and implementing some of that stuff, and then coming back to that person saying, you helped me, I'd love to help the others know how much you've helped me too. This is a great way to get in front of other audiences as well. Woo! This is so informative. I'm going to have to do at least one replay. Priceless information. Thanks, Pat. Pat, I feel like I'm being pushy to ask if I can be on another podcast. And that's, thank you for saying that, Ryan. Why do you feel like you're pushy? Is it because a lot of times we want to get to the point. Here's how you make it not pushy. You get to the point where this person knows what you have to offer, such that they will ask you. Now, it's not always going to work out that way, but if you approach the ask with, how can I in fact get this person to wonder and bring me on their show and ask me first, even if you in fact do ask first, but if you again approach it that way, where you share your superpowers and what you have to offer, then so much that this person would kind of be not very smart if they didn't ask you to come on their show. That's the approach. That's the approach. When you have that approach, the byproduct is when you do ask, it's not even pushy anymore. It just makes sense. So there's a little bit of nuancing in terms of, okay, how do we ask? And if you still feel like you're being a little bit pushy, then then really what that means, that's just code word for I don't feel like I have something that you need. If you truly believed that you had a superpower or content or a story or something that could serve that person in their audience, then it's almost your obligation to reach out to them and let them know that you have this to offer to them. And it's not going to be pushy anymore if that's indeed the case. Whew, sorry, I've just been talking up a storm. You guys good? Little energy check, even you in the back over there. What's up? Hope you guys are doing well. Pat Flynn, so happy you are opening the doors with these tips. People definitely surprise you more than expected in a good way. Thank you, Ariel, for saying that. Esther says, lit. That's right. Appreciate you guys. So if you have good value content and want to share more good content, tell them you'd like to share it with them. Again, it's even just the way you frame that, Esther. I would like to share this with you. It reminds me of this bulletin board that I saw where there was a person who was wanting to get hired to walk dogs, and it said, "I want to walk your dog." That was the pitch. I want to walk your dog. And it's like all the little tabs were still there, because when you think about it, that's a terrible ad. That is that person saying, well, it's not about helping you save time. It's not about keeping your dog, healthy and fit and taking something off of your hands so I can do it so that you can do more things. It's I want to walk your dog. That's not a great sell. Right? It's almost like going door to door and saying, "Hey, I want to make some money. Do you want to buy these candy bars?" It's like, "Hey, here are these candy bars. They're really sweet. They're from Ghirardelli, and if you so happen to have a sweet tooth, I have your answer," right? But yes, if you have good value content, a great story to share, and if it relates to something that this person really is needing or is really hot on right now, then it's going to be more likely that this person will go, well, of course, then it makes sense. This has happened to me a few times when people have reached out to me and said, "Hey, Pat, I see that you are into this, that you're looking for more things about that, and I happen to have an amazing story I'd love to share with your audience, and it would be something that I think would be really helpful for you and your people." Oh, let's talk a little bit more about that, right? We up here in the cheap seats, but still loving the show. Thanks, JT. Appreciate you. All right, just checking out the chat. Watch using the word "I" too much. Yeah, even on your website, on your, obviously on your About page, you're going to be using the word "I" a couple times. But see how you can still inject more of you, or not you, but the word "you" into your ask, into your website, especially on the homepage, helping people like you, helping entrepreneurs like you. If you listen to my show, Ask Pat, how do I frame it? Hey, you're about to listen to a coaching call between myself and an entrepreneur just like you. I'm here to help you be a fly on the wall in a conversation so you can learn from the coaching process. If you're just starting your podcast, is it best to not use affiliates until you find your podcast name and build an audience? I mean, let's talk about this a little bit. If you have a product that can help this audience that you're going to eventually build, not sharing it early on is like going, "Hey guys, I had this really cool product. I want to share it with you. It will help you. I know your goals. I know it can help you. But you know what? There's only 5 of you here, so I'm not even going to tell you right now. I'm going to wait till we get to 1,000 subscribers because it's not even worth telling you right now." You see, this is the same approach. When we consider affiliate marketing, we often think of it, oh, it's a very selfish thing. It's just earning commission by promoting products for us. No. If you approach this as a serve first opportunity, oh, here's a product that can actually help you, then it would behoove you to mention it early on in episode 1. It's, of course, how you mention it and how you inject it in there that matters. If it's very salesy and pushy, well, then it's like, oh, well, episode 1, I'm already getting an impression that this person's here just to make money. But do you see what I mean? You see how I reframe that? If you have a product that's maybe not yours, but you are an affiliate for it and you know it can help others, wouldn't it make sense to share it with people even early on? Can you imagine if somebody had a cure for a disease and was like, you know what, there's not enough people who have this disease right now, so I'm not going to share it with you. Oh my gosh, can you imagine saying, sorry, there aren't enough of you, so never mind, right? So yeah, absolutely. If you know this product can help them, share it. Your reward for sharing it is the earnings, right? That answer just blew my mind. Thanks, Pat. You're welcome. And again, it's the approach. But if you happen to have the solution, like, share it, right? Share it. Cool. We got about 13 minutes left. How in the world did we get here already? I got about an hour and 45 minutes left till the big webinar happening later today. If you are on my list, you should likely see an email to register for that. If you're interested in podcasting, if you're not, no worries. Xenia says, Xenia Vlada says, does the tagline, we help target audience get more traffic and save time? Then sound good if we do Pinterest marketing management. If you do Pinterest marketing management, you're definitely, that's what Uber is, a time-saving app, right? eBay is a time-saving app. All these things save time and save money. So get more traffic, save time. You're sharing the benefits there. If there is, the only thing I will say about that is we help authors get more traffic and save time. I think a additional part of that tagline could be something that if you know that audience, then it could go one step further. I think you're almost there. It's good. It'll work the way it is. But to connect one level deeper, like let's say it's authors, for example. We help authors, or we help you, if you in fact know they're authors already and they're coming there. We help you get more traffic and save time so that you can spend more time, so that you can focus more on your books, or so that you can have more freedom with your writing. You see how now I'm tying it into something very specific to that group? That's the addition that could help take it one step further, right? Because it sounds very generic to say, oh, we help you get more traffic and save time. But if you put the why in there for that specific group of people, well, then it's like, wow, well, that's actually what I want, more freedom to write. I'm so sick of the marketing and the traffic and trying to figure that out. Like, if somebody could take care of all that for me, I'd have much more freedom to write. So that's kind of how that would work, if that makes sense. Okay, let me go into my calendar really quick to see what time tomorrow's start time is. Tuesday, Wednesday. Tomorrow. Darn, ever since school started, there's been like some crazy scheduling things that have to happen. So I apologize. I know some people are here late today because it started at 8:30. Tomorrow I have that mastermind call. So I think I'm going to start earlier tomorrow like I used to on Wednesdays to accommodate for this meeting. I missed it last week and I don't want to miss it this week. So tomorrow we're going to start quite early, 7:30 a.m. Pacific. We're going to start at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. So I just hate having to switch it up, but it's just the schedules have been super weird. Ideally, I would recommend that if you're going to be doing something consistently, to have it come out the same time every time. But obviously, sometimes that's unable to happen, so I apologize. So big takeaway from today is to help find other person, say, how can you help me? Yeah. Again, it's all coming from a place of service. This is the art of the ask, is before asking for yourself, ask for them, right? Hey, Pat, any tips about technology podcasting, please? What do you mean technology podcasting? The technology of podcasting, or if you are a podcaster talking about technology, then I think that it would make the most sense to have information that's different from all the other people who are doing tech reviews and things like that. How can you put a spin on or take things to one step further where people are going to go, oh my gosh, I need to listen to Sai's podcast because his is the only one that blank. This is actually a great strategy for everybody. If you have a podcast or a blog or YouTube channel, how might you imagine people talking about your brand without you there? This is branding, how people talk about you when you're not there. Oh, you got to listen to Sai's podcast because he does this unlike anybody else. What is that answer? You got to find that out. Squadcast? Well, if you're looking to interview people, that would be the best technology to interview others. Squadcast, in my opinion. Full disclosure, I'm an affiliate and an advisor for that. Cool. This has been a fun conversation. Also, thank you all for the really amazing. Some of you talking about Power Up Podcasting right now. Thank you. What was I going to say? Oh, thank you all for the feedback on yesterday's reel. I had for a long time wanted to do a reel about haters and trolls, and I think I was able to, in a 15-second moment, sort of just capture a lesson and sort of how I felt, or how I used to feel versus how I feel about haters now. You can check it out on my Instagram. It's the latest post, the latest Instagram reel. Ooh. Cool, 7 minutes left. Really appreciate these deep dives into real feelings and struggles within entrepreneurship. Thank you for saying that, Peasant. You know, it's one thing to just share all the strategies and the tactics and all those little things and the tools. Like, those things help. They do. But you are not going to unlock their fullest potential if you don't unlock your brain. And a lot of this stuff is all based on how we're conditioned. We sometimes are complacent with certain things based on our past, and as a result, we are having difficulty unlocking new levels. And it's really important to talk these things out. This is why I wanted more of a roundtable discussion about this today, and I'm really excited about where we ended up today. You know, sometimes. And I knew, and I don't know, maybe there's some people sitting on the sideline, maybe it's the 2 thumbs down, but still, thank you for helping with the algorithm. I still think that in many cases, some people were hoping probably for, okay, like, tell me how to ask something of somebody. Like, give me the 3-step process. And sometimes those things exist, and in many cases they do, and they're very helpful. But I wanted to go deep today into the ask, into really who we are to ask, and how it's okay to ask, and how others are even willing to help. Not everybody, and you're going to get no's sometimes. This is the last point here, is the fact that, you know, when you ask for help, when you ask somebody for something, you're going to get no's. You will get no's, and that's okay. I would much rather get a no than consider the what ifs, right? I would much rather live a life full of oh wells than a life full of what ifs, right? Because those what ifs would just drive me crazy. I have to know the answer one way or another. Because when you get to that no now, you can move on to the next stage sooner. Whether it's asking somebody else or trying to find a better way to earn the ability to ask this person this thing, or whatever the case may be. So you will get no's. And it doesn't feel good. But it should. Because now you know, even if you get a no, you can now at least move on. And you're not wondering. Right? Wonder is great. Imagining is amazing. But it's not going to get you anywhere unless you take action. And if you need that action taken, and you're not quite sure which direction to go, ask for help. If you know that there's other people out there who could support your brand or vice versa, and you want to make sure that you are asking in the proper way, make sure you're coming from a place of service and asking them what they might need first. Right? I remember a story about Tim Ferriss. I've told this a couple times, but when his book, The 4-Hour Workweek, came out, Jeremy Franson, who is one of the hosts of the Internet Business Mastery podcast, which was the very first podcast I ever listened to, game-changing, life-changing for me. That was the podcast where I heard an episode where a person was helping people pass the project management exam. So I owe a lot of my success to Internet Business Mastery, Jason and Jeremy Franson. But Jeremy and I were having lunch one day at Cheesecake Factory in San Diego, and he told me a story about Tim Ferriss because he and I were both fans, and he got to meet Tim Ferriss before. So I was asking him what that was like. And he was telling me over his spaghetti that Tim, was very good at first building a relationship and asking what others needed first. So when Tim went to a conference, this was pre 4-hour work week. He had just finished writing the book. He wanted to market it, but he would go to these conferences and try to meet and befriend as many people as possible. And he would get so interested in what they were doing first to a point where a person couldn't help but ask back, oh, so what are you working on? So that was Tim's job. Tim Ferriss went all in with going into other people's businesses to figure out what they were doing and to learn more about them. And the big thing I want to leave you with here is sometimes we need to stop being so interesting and start getting so interested. Because when you start getting interested in what other people are doing, the chances are they're going to be interested back, and then you'll have permission to talk about this thing that you might need help with or the next project that you have. And as a result of building all these relationships and just deep diving in, people like Tim asked Jeremy what they were up to because they had a podcast, they were at this event, and he was just laughing because it was really funny because Tim came from a place just literally starting from scratch. But Jeremy and Jason helped push his book out, as well as everybody else who Tim was initially interested in first, right? So I love that. Kim says, Pat, how do I get registered for your webinar? I'm on your list. Oh, okay, let me get the link for you. And I'll just share it here in the chat, if that's cool. Didn't even come across my mind that I could potentially promote this here. But we currently have 3,354 people. 3,354 people. That was a weird, did I say that? I said that really weird. So I'm gonna grab the link. And I'm gonna pop it into chat here. Podcasting webinar later today, 11 a.m. Pacific. There's the link. Whew. Awesome. Hey, chat, thank you so much today. I appreciate you. And let's keep up the good work. So I popped in the link there. Great job, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today and for the wonderful conversation about asking. And hopefully, in some way, shape, or form, this has helped serve you today. And I hope that you can take this information and even today start practicing some of this stuff that we talked about. And also being open to the fact that there are people out there who will want to help you and serve you, and that it's not a bad thing if you get help. In fact, it's a sign of strength if you properly figure out what you need help with, and you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are, and you can get support in different places to help you do more of what you need to do and help and serve even more people too. So well done today, everybody. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. We'll start tomorrow early, 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, so mark your calendars. We're going to have another deep dive conversation about something. Yesterday, we talked about storytelling. Today, we talked about asking. Tomorrow, what's it going to be about? I don't know. But we have a new secret word for the whole entire month, flabbergasted. If I don't say that in one of the streams this month, y'all let me know, and I will be punished by playing a game of Watch Your Mouth over the weekend. I think I still owe you one from yesterday. I didn't say any secret words yesterday, so we're already got one on the list. But hey, take care. Thanks so much. I appreciate you. And as always, Team Flynn for the win.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Thanks again for being a member of the quarantine, and to being a member of the YouTube channel, and for just being awesome, for being attentive, for sharing your thoughts with not just me, but with others here. This is a community, and I'm so thankful you're a part of it. Peace out, y'all.
Bruh.